Okay. All right. Well, welcome to a Kahuna Marketing podcast. My name is Adam Buchanan, and I am with Michael Shipley, also known by as Ship. Ship, welcome. Thanks for taking the time, and it's great to have this conversation.
Thanks, Adam. I'm excited to chat with you. Yes, and you can call me Ship or Michael or Mike. I answer to just about anything.
That's right. Well, and it's funny too. I love where you kind of got the nickname, and might be a good story to share later on. But just want to give folks that are listening, an intro of who we are. We're part of Kahuna Marketing. We're a full service digital agency. We are based in the wonderful, beautiful, surrounded by incredibly blue crystal water in Kauai, Hawaii. So if you visited Kauai, give us a shout out. Let us know how your trip was. Ship, first off, I just want to say, what's it like working in Kauai every day? I mean, how is your commute?
Yeah, so great question. The commute for me, it's about 5 minutes, unless I don't time the lights right, then it may be 7 minutes. So I apologize for that. I know everybody that hears that is grumbling. One thing that I've come to learn, though, is, Kauai has its challenges just like any place. But don't ever complain about them online because you get zero sympathy from anybody. You could say, because we have one highway that goes around the island. So if a tree falls across the highway, you may be stuck there for an hour or more. But the last time we complained about being stuck in traffic on social media, people said, "Oh, so you were in traffic on Kauai, huh?" And gave us a lot of little tiny violin
Oh, man.
responses.
So, for listeners, I mean, this is a good kind of pull back the curtain moment of, okay, let's just get it out there. What is one of the pains of living on Kauai? I have to know this now. Other than the highway, right? The tree falls over. And funny enough,
Right.
I've been in that experience. I've gotten stuck behind that going to Honolulu Bay, and it was real. I mean, there was no other route. It truly is a thing. But what's one other thing, though, you're like, yeah, here's a struggle.
Yeah, well, so right now I can tell you the lack of air conditioning is something that you feel. So here, most of the homes do not have air conditioning. They're built in a way that you open up the windows and you get kind of a breeze through. But there are certain times in the year when the trade winds die down. And so there's zero breeze. And so you sit there, you're sweating on the couch, unless you have a fan pointed right at you, and you go to bed and you roll over and the sheets are stuck to your back or whatever. So, a lot of people that we work with, a lot of clients that are in Texas and including El Paso and some really hot areas. But the thing you don't realize is you're going from air conditioning to air conditioning, whereas here it can get pretty uncomfortable when there's no trade winds.
That's right. I love that article just recently where they're interviewing people in Arizona, and they said, yeah, we'll keep our thermostat at 82 at night. And I'm like, no, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And a lot of the other things, though, it's kind of like working from a small town that some people embrace and love, and other people, they miss a lot of the conveniences. I've given, when people have asked me whether Kauai could be a good fit for them, I've given them that my rule of thumb is, if you're willing to buy clothes from the bulk bin in Costco, then Kauai could be a great fit for you.
Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, and everyone like pauses, like, could I? Okay, yeah.
Right.
Well, Ship, tell us where you're from and just something personal. What did you want to be when you grew up? Did you see yourself here?
Yeah, well, I was born in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and moved from there when I was really little to Katy, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. And so I think I was adding up the other day. I think that I've spent the most number of years in my life in Texas, so I can claim Texan title there. But I've also lived, I graduated from Utah State University, went to high school there in Utah. I've also lived in Arizona, lived in Seattle, Washington area, and then here on Kauai. And we love seeing new areas, exploring. We love the outdoors, and every one of the places that we've lived in has had some beautiful, outdoor environments there. So for us, neither my wife nor I have family centralized in one location, and so it's been easy for us to kind of move where work takes us and where we'd like to be. And it's interesting. I've got my oldest kid. My daughter is just starting college. So I've talked a lot about careers and stuff with her. It's interesting what we do for a living wasn't an option, back
That's
when.
right. Didn't exist.
Yeah. And so, at the time I wanted to be a ski instructor. Early on, I wanted to be a chef, but then by high school, all I wanted to do was ski. I lived for, Warren Miller movies coming out, and I, took the classes to be a ski instructor, and I thought that was just going to be the end all for me. But
Yeah.
then this industry came along, online advertising, that I just loved and gravitated to.
Okay. Well, I'm a bit of a ski bum myself. So what is your favorite Warren Miller?
Oh man, I don't know if I have the years cataloged, but we would go every living in Cache Valley, Utah. That was kind of like the kickoff of ski season, was when Warren Miller came and they did the movie at Utah State, and that got us all hyped. And then since then, now you've got Teton Gravity Research and a lot of the other movies and stuff. But all of that, I love all of that stuff. Funny story here. I went from feeling like I would be a ski instructor. That was my future, and couldn't imagine a year without snow skiing. To since we've had kids, we've lived in Texas, and Arizona and Hawaii, and we just started taking the kids skiing for the first time probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I thought, man, I am going to have to turn in my parent card since they haven't grown up like I did.
Okay, deal. Awesome. Well, in being in Utah, being based in Salt Lake, we're the opposite. We're like restaurant row of ski resorts. So Ship has all dialed in on your trips to Kauai. I can help you with the best taco stands in Salt Lake and the best skiing. So we've got you covered, hot and cold.
Yeah, both ends covered there.
That's right. So, Ship, got to ask you a personal question. If you were to start a YouTube about any topic ever, what would it be?
Well, you may eventually see a YouTube channel from me. My wife and I, our passion is hiking and backpacking. And one of the interesting things, one of the draws to Kauai is, most people know it for the beaches that are incredible, world-class beaches. But I don't think we would have moved here if it was just the beaches. I can only sit in the sand for so long, which is actually a long period of time. I can do that. But the other big draw on Kauai are the trails. They're some of the most amazing trails that look out over the Nepali coast, that are up Waimea Canyon, trails that are along the coastline, and all different types of vegetation and the highest elevation swamp in the world is here on Kauai. The wettest place on the planet is here on Kauai. Even to areas where there's cactus and other kind of dry climate type plants and stuff. And so, anyway, hiking is our passion outside of work, and eventually I'm going to, if I can peel away from this computer occasionally, I'm going to start creating some YouTube videos with trail reviews and instructions and stuff for people who are planning to come to Kauai.
Well, it's podcast official now, so watch for this upcoming YouTube channel. And I've done a very small amount of hiking on Kauai. It was incredible. We went more for the beaches, but yeah, I can attest to that. Just an incredible guide of where to go, how long it is, difficulty, kid friendly. It'd be amazing, and it'd be all digital and video reviews. That'd be awesome.
Yep.
Okay, well, deal. Well, check back with us. Leave a comment if that's interesting to you, and we'll see if Ship has got his channel launched and he's on his way to be a YouTube influencer.
And once we get all of the trails knocked out, then it'll be food trucks. We'll just keep going
Food
so that you
trucks.
guys
There you
have
go. And then,
all of
and
the
then,
recommendations.
and then naturally beauty tutorials, right, with your beard.
Right. That's right.
So, Ship, take us back a few years, maybe before the agency came about. We're going to get there, but what was your view of digital marketing in the early days?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, people were trying to figure it out, and I remember a time when paid search, for example, the only requirement was bidding on the term and having your bid amount. There was no relevance involved. You could bid on anything and show up. And that was before Google was the king of search there. But I started out as a web developer early on before I got into this industry, and the piece that lacked for me was the storytelling, and that's kind of why I gravitated towards the advertising piece. I liked telling the story. I liked the messaging aspect and kind of the nuance of finding the right people and getting ads in front of them.
So, yeah, and when I say early days, what were the early days for you? I mean, when did you start kind of getting exposed to digital marketing?
Oh, let's see. That was 2000, must have been 2001, 2002 timeframe that I started in that. Yeah. And over the years, just kind of my progression there, I worked for a company that in web development, I worked for a company called Icon Health and Fitness that does the Nordic Track and Proform and all of the different kinds of treadmills and that type of thing, and then shifted over doing search advertising for a real estate type company there, and over the years, I eventually made my way to Microsoft in Seattle area when they were launching the Bing platform. I was hired as a search strategist there and moved to Seattle area about a year before Bing was launched. So it was live search at one time. And it was, in fact, I still have in my office a poster that was kind of commemorating, live search was going to slay, Google and take down the giant kind of thing. And,
Yeah.
That hasn't quite come to pass yet, but and so I was there when a number of the largest West Coast advertisers were being onboarded on Bing. So I worked with Toyota, Lexus, Nissan, Nordstrom, a number of the major advertisers. And then from there, I shifted from just a search focus and moved to Dallas, Texas, with Microsoft as an account executive, and shifted from just search to managing a book of business that had, display and mobile and video and sponsorships and managing all products there. And then from that, I moved over, took a position with Yahoo as an account director there, and again managed large books of business for Samsung Mobile, Hilton Hotels, Travelocity. Had a big business development agreement with Yahoo and stuff. And I loved it. I really enjoyed working with clients. That piece was fantastic. I loved being a part of kind of the big strategy. But one of the things that I missed was the hands-on execution of campaigns. I would sell big plans and then hand them off to teams. And to a large degree, most of the strategy and stuff was done at the agency level, and we would kind of come in and pitch products in that.
Sure.
But then execution was done otherwise. And so that's what kind of led to Kahuna Marketing, was that desire to be closer to strategy and execution.
And Kahuna Marketing was started in 2013. So tell us about that time where, you know, a lot of times people are seeing really great results, you know, especially in the social media side. A lot of the algorithm changes hadn't really hit yet. They were starting to, but what was it like in your view? What was that like starting an agency at that time?
Yeah, it was a big leap of faith for me because working for some of those major publishers is it's a great gig. Um, I really, I enjoyed taking clients out on the company card and stuff like that, and really enjoyed that work. And so the idea of starting a business, taking a risk, and on top of that, when I was pitching the idea to my wife, she said, "So you want to start a business and move to one of the most expensive places in the country?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." So, I mean, it really took, I guess, to give you kind of the background leading up to that. I've always been interested in exploring other cultures and had looked at opportunities for jobs internationally and through Microsoft and Yahoo and other opportunities. And they either just weren't the right location or the right time. And I came on vacation here with my business partner, Jake. And I remember being up at Hanalei Bay, just floating in the water, looking at the waterfalls, on the cliffs
Oh yeah.
behind.
Oh yeah.
I just looked around and I was like, these guys have figured out how to live here. I mean, it's like, Hawaii has its unique culture. It's got the most beautiful, in my mind, I haven't been to a more beautiful place on the planet. But it's still, you're still living in the United States and have a lot of the securities and conveniences of that. And so that kind of beginning of why not do what we do, from Kauai, that kind of started that put that ball into motion there. And it took about 2 years to figure out what's a smart business plan, how much risk am I willing to take, so part of starting Kahuna Marketing was not only that business objective of getting closer to execution and strategy, but also the personal objective of, hey, I want to take my family and have an adventure while the kids are still in school and live somewhere that, inspires us. And that's kind of how Kahuna Marketing came to be.
And the 5-minute commute. I mean,
5-minute commute.
Come on, you can't beat that. Take that, LA.
Right.
That's awesome. So
yeah.
you bring all this background with so many different brands, so many different verticals. You start Kahuna Marketing with Jake, and so we're here now. It's years later. Things are growing. Things are getting. The team is growing. Me myself, I joined about 7 months ago. It's been great to be part of the team and kind of see this really diverse view of all these verticals we work within, and it's exciting to see. Want to step back a little bit and hear right now, what's your view of digital marketing and where do you see it going?
Yeah, great question. Well, it's only going to grow. When early on, when I was trying to sell digital, we had to fight for budgets from traditional media. It was very siloed, the groups that were working on TV and working in print and radio. And we had to really build a case for this search marketing, and then the other channels as well. Well, why YouTube? Why digital video? We've got TV and stuff. And so one thing that's changed is we no longer have to build that case. Everybody gets it. Everybody sees that that's where it's going, and those channels are beginning to be blurred. We're serving digital ads on the living room screen, and so because of that, and because the focus isn't so much on channel as it is in finding the consumer wherever the experience makes sense. Because of that, digital is just going to continue to grow. One thing that I see, especially we work so closely with Google. is there's really a push for using Google's artificial intelligence and their machine learning and that. And so I think we're just going to continue to get better at serving the right ad to the right people, at the right time. And we as marketers are going to be able to focus more on strategy, defining audiences, creating experience, and the tools are going to become more automated at delivering them, to drive the greatest impact and ROI.
And do you believe personalization is still kind of that opportunity, but also challenge that the companies face? I mean, really fine tuning, getting that right ad to the right person at the right time. Do you feel like people have figured that out yet, or do you feel like that's still more of an opportunity for people?
I think both. I think people get that ads should be personalized. I think people understand sequential messaging is important, and saying the right message to the right person, depending on where they are in the funnel. I think where the opportunity is, though, is that requires a lot of work. We often talk to advertisers about a conversion path model where there is more sequential messaging, and they reside in different buckets depending on where they are in that process. And then we'll get just kind of standard, banner ads or standard messaging things. And so I think most people get that that's ideal. But in most cases, we see that people are kind of, under-resourced to be able to build out properly that conversion path.
So let's just look at Kahuna Marketing and look at the projects and clients that you've worked with. Is there a client or project that really sticks out to you over the years that you're just like, oh, this is one of my favorite projects or favorite partners to work with? And I know it's like asking who's your favorite child, and we probably have a lot of clients listening. And so maybe we could, recut personalized episodes to share with each client. Say, yes, it's this one. I love you guys. But
Yeah.
But we can only do so much editing, and we're all about transparency. What's been the one thing you've really enjoyed, though? What have you enjoyed working on?
Well, my favorite client is insert company here.
Insert every single one of them. Yes.
No, I'll tell you how I can't answer that. Because we've worked with a lot of great advertisers, and one of the things, though, that I've loved, that I feel like has where we've carved out a space that that advertisers really appreciate, is we've worked with a lot of advertisers that really didn't understand how to set up and measure KPIs that tie back to ROI and and return on ad spend. And a lot of times it's mid-sized companies, mid-sized advertisers who have done search in-house and had somebody that could run ads but didn't really understand the nuances, or is running social but didn't understand how to retarget and do dynamic product ads and those types of things. And so we've worked with a lot of advertisers who have been doing it, but haven't understood how to do it at a high level. And that's one of the things that's very satisfying, is to be able to go in and say, okay, here's how we're going to track return on investment, return on ad spend. And once we hit your target in this area, then it just becomes a math equation at that point. There's still things we're doing, but instead of having a $5,000 a month budget, well, if you're getting a 5-to-1 return on ad spend, then why not make it a $10,000 a month budget? So I'd say that's what stands out to me as being the most rewarding. And we've seen, when we report with advertisers, we look at month over month, year over year, and depending on the timing, half over half, or quarter over quarter, and to be able to go back and see where they've come over that period of time is extremely rewarding.
All right, so it's everybody. Everyone's your favorite.
Everybody's my favorite.
And I agree. I think when you see that light click on for advertisers and these clients we work with, It is. I mean, that in some way is just that intrinsical payment of great. We're making progress. We're making advancement, and yeah, it's exciting to see. What right now, if a business was to come to you and say, "Hey, we're running a lot of ads. We're doing everything we think we know is right, or we're doing everything." But what's one piece of advice that you'd share with them if they said, we just want to make it more impactful. We want to make it, level it up. What is the thing right now? What's the trend right now that you're seeing that kind of applies to most businesses?
That's a good question. Trends across the board. I think thinking about the consumer, having a better handle on who the consumer is versus thinking about tactics and channels is an important thing. And then going back to that, how to track. And one of the challenges, excuse me, one of the big opportunities, but probably biggest challenge for a lot of advertisers, for example, is understanding attribution, and the touch points along that consumer path and how to balance that out. And that's something that we've been, as an industry, been trying to figure out for 10 years. And the reality is there's still not a great solution for it. There are models, there are products for it. But there's not an easy answer. And I have a lot of advertisers that say, what should our attribution model be? And the reality is your data should be what's determining your attribution model. And so it comes as a result of a lot of tests and a lot of, adjustment and stuff like that. So
and what's available to you, right? I mean, you can't take an advertiser who only has so many resources. And I mean, for example, I see this all the time. Someone will say, well, we need Salesforce. And it's like, all right, well, you got to look at implementation experts. You've got to look at people who can run that. You got to look at, you're bringing in this really strong platform, and nothing against Salesforce, but you attach so many of the resources to that, right? It's not just flipping a light switch on. So I agree.
Right.
I think you have to work within kind of the bounds you have and try to make it work, rather than, yeah, we're going to go get IBM's Watson Marketing or, all these like big players. It's hard for advertisers to chew on, I'd say.
Right. And at some point, you have to make some assumptions and some, best guesses, because you could have a really, tight attribution model for your digital advertising, but then how much credit are you going to give for the print, that's going out, or the, the other offline or traditional media engagement there. And so we work with, for example, an advertiser who does a lot of online advertising, but is trying to drive people in store to purchase. And so there's a disconnect from online to offline. Now, there's a lot of things that we layer in, such as, Google tracked store visits. We can do geo-targeting and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, that cash register conversion is not pumping back into, Google Ads or Facebook and stuff. And so that's kind of part of the art and the making some educated assumptions and predictions there that goes along with marketing.
And the one thing you said about getting to know your customer really well, I know some of the partners and advertisers we work with. One thing I love is when someone says, here are my personas, here are my audience archetypes. So
yeah,
we may not know everything, but we've drawn a line in the sand and said, here's who are the 4 or 3 personas that we're talking to. Here's the data we have on them. Let's start here. That to me is a very educated move to take that data, culminate it, and say, yeah, we've summarized it here, and this is who we're after. And I think you're right on, though, is knowing who you're talking to, but documenting it and sharing it with partners, sharing it with agencies, internal teams. I mean, people have to know, at the end of the day, we're marketing to humans.
Right. And I think one of the mistakes, or maybe not a mistake, but just kind of the learning curves that advertisers go through is they're typically, budget constrained. There's never as much budget as you would like for a campaign. And so when we say, who are you trying to reach? Lots of times they haven't thought beyond, well, we want anybody that wants to buy our product.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, we'll take anybody that wants to buy it, but we could spend a lot of money trying to find those people. And I think in some cases they hesitate to define their audience for fear of missing some segment. But the reality is most budgets are limited enough that if you can find 2 or 3 core audience personas, then and really focus on that, that's where you see stronger performance.
So right now with Kahuna Marketing, where things are at, what would you say gets you the most excited about Kahuna Marketing right now?
Well, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that nearly all of our business has come through referrals and partners who have recommended our work. And so to me, that's a statement to the quality of work and the results that we produce. It's interesting. Sometimes I hesitate to say that because we are a digital advertising agency, but we're not spending on digital advertising and for ourselves. And that's because we're growing with referrals and recommendations and stuff. And we, really our biggest challenge is keeping up with that and continuing that growth. So that's one of the things that I'm most proud of. And in fact, we work with some advertisers that, maybe have a small team and then eventually want to bring the work in-house, which we're great with. We feel like that is, that's healthy attrition. If we're helping build up people's online advertising business and then, they want to manage it, we think that's fantastic. And for that matter, we don't handcuff advertisers. When we set up accounts, we set them up in their name. They own those. In many cases with agencies, you walk away from all of the work that you had, if you cut ties with an agency, and that's not the case with us. But we've actually had a couple of advertisers who have done that, who've brought it in-house and then came back and said, nah, I think, could you guys do it? I think it's better off when you guys were doing it. So, those are probably some of the things that make me most proud as far as the work that we've been doing. And it has me excited for the continued growth path of the company.
I think in the word of mouth side too, it's that notion of, hey, I have this great result or this great relationship with somebody. I want to share that with my colleagues. I want to share that with my other business partners and peers. One trend I've seen in my career is that peers and colleagues kind of stick together. I had an instance where I had a peer pull me into a company and said, hey, come work over here. And then another time where other people leave a brand and go somewhere else and they kind of stick together and they say, hey, we're heading over here now. And I've seen this a lot, especially in digital marketing. We really look out for one another. And I think when you refer an agency to somebody else, it's, hey, I see where you're at. I see what projects you're working on. Hey, I've got someone who can really help fill that. And so it's a cool way to look at it. And again, on that growth pattern of, getting more into the digital ads and that type of thing. But no, it's great. I mean, with this many years behind the agency, it's encouraging. It's awesome. So let's talk about, future state. Got good momentum. Things are happening. Where do you see Kahuna Marketing a year from now?
Yeah, well, a year from now. So with your hire, Adam, we've been focused on expanding our social service offering, and we've got a lot of great clients on paid social. I think a year from now we'll be expanding beyond to organic social services and beyond that. Continuing to expand. We've been doing a lot with brand lift studies and some of the new beta products that have come out with Google. And I think we're going to continue to leverage those for our advertisers. Logistics wise, now that, so we are Kauai based business, but we have now 3 employees in the Salt Lake area, employees in Dallas and Seattle. So I imagine we'll continue to grow that base. Perhaps Salt Lake, north of Salt Lake will be a second hub. for us. We have offices in Kauai, but we may also expand offices in those areas. So it's pretty exciting. It's and this industry is so fast paced, and you get we have a number of great prospect clients that we're working on that could change the landscape quite a bit for the company. It's kind of a fun thing to think about.
Yeah, and I think on the services side, we dabble in it with a few clients and advertisers where they'll say, hey, we're partnering with influencers. And
Mm-hmm.
influencers has definitely become part of the marketing mix. So it's been exciting to see just the last few months we've been able to get involved in those conversations and kind of be more active and get ahead of some of that. So I think that's exciting. And then the other observation I have with a lot of companies is they're checking boxes on a lot of things they think they should be. We've got to run ads here. We've got to do search. We've got to, and those are all good things. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes from content marketing perspective, they're checking those boxes. We have to post on Facebook once a day. We have to do a video because we heard one time video is really impactful. We have to do this type of imagery and that's great. And it's good to dabble in that and get those insights. But one thing I'm excited for too is helping these clients stand back and say, okay, content marketing is expensive. It's time consuming, it's resourceful, it's so many things. And then you have to amplify it with paid media. And going into those creative conversations with as much data, as much insight as possible, I think I'm excited for too, is getting more on that strategic side of what are you creating? If you're working with these influencers, what story is being told? And getting ahead of some of that, because in some cases, so many companies have quite a bit of data. They have more data than they may think they do. And it's good to stand back, look at that content side too. So that's exciting. I think as you talk about all the things coming, that's one that kind of sticks out to me as well.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of wrap up here, Kahuna Marketing, I'd also say too, the way I describe it's fairly senior overview of who is on the team now. And it's exciting to see that we have that oversight of all the senior team members, lots of diverse experience. One thing I think we're going to be talking about a lot on this podcast is kind of bringing those team members in, also partners. We work with a lot of great design agencies, PR agencies. So that's one thing I'm excited about, is bringing some of that really multifaceted expertise and just really start to document and archive a lot of common questions in the industry, a lot of different topics, what's coming, even just, looking at some of the, case studies that happen so frequently of brands. I mean, just last week we saw the big Popeyes, Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich war. And, things like that, I'm excited to start unpacking and just finding out what happened there, what do we know, and what can we learn to make our efforts more impactful. So it's exciting. We're hoping that you listen to this podcast and send us questions. Ship is a wealth of knowledge. You heard of all the brands that he's worked with, all the different verticals. You come with such diverse experience. And, what's it like to, as you dip into some of that experience, I mean, does it ever, okay, this is a weird question, but does it ever surprise you that someone will throw you like a curveball question and you're just like, yeah, I got it. Like in this year, in this quarter, I was working on this campaign. Do you ever feel like that? Like you're kind of this master demigod marketer? You're not going to call yourself that, but
yeah. That's on my next business card, by the way. So
okay,
look out for that. No, the reality is you have to stay, because this is such a fast moving industry.
yeah.
Nobody's ever going to know everything, and you're constantly learning because there's constantly new stuff coming out. And so that, I guess that part kind of keeps you humble. But I've been doing this long enough and know enough in this that sometimes I will get a question that I don't know the answer to. And I can tell the advertiser, if I don't know the answer, it's probably not out there, or others don't know it either. I mean, there are things that I have to look up, but typically if I find that I'm stumped, then I'll go out on, message boards and things like that and find that other people are stumped too. We've actually been pretty resourceful in some areas. In fact, one thing that a lot of marketers might use now with Google products in Tag Manager, you can do site call tracking. And for example, when that came out, we were right on, one of the early adopters of Google Tag Manager. In fact, we said, well, why can't we do site call tracking through that tool? And we were the first agency to implement that. We worked with Google development teams and engineers to figure out how to do that and stuff. And so, if there are questions out there, and we typically have a perspective on it, and if we don't, it's new, and we're all on board for getting creative and figuring that kind of stuff out.
Awesome, I love it, and that's a very humble answer, by the way. That was very well done. So, but yes, you got a lot of years of experience, and also just with the team, we have so many combined years of experience, and
yeah.
It's exciting to have that, but it's also comforting too, as we often don't know, and that's okay. And we reach out to each other and find a solution. And so watch for that on this podcast as we do future episodes of covering, what questions are we receiving. We'll kind of, talk about that and discuss. To wrap up, I want to share just kind of some fun facts about Kauai, because I've been a few times and I love it. I love it there. But tell me about the roosters. What is up with all the roosters?
So if anybody that hasn't been to Kauai, chickens and roosters just run wild everywhere on this island. And, every tour that I've been on, everybody has their little tourist story of why chickens run everywhere. The common one is that during Hurricane Iniki in '92, that chickens got out and they just took over the island. I mean, really, there's no natural predators. There's nothing scary on Kauai. There's nothing that would eat chickens or anything like that. And so, and we, we come to love them here. It's part of kind of everybody that comes. Kauai roosters is kind of a novelty. But what's interesting is, since '92, I guess, in that time of evolution, they've forgotten that crowing is just something that you do in the morning. Like, so the roosters here, I'll be in a meeting at 3:00 in the afternoon, and there'll be a rooster outside the window, making noise. And occasionally we'll catch a client off guard, and they'll say, "Chip, are you on a farm?"
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I have to just explain, no, these are our roosters, and they have no sense of timing here. So if you come, you'll love them. Some people get the worst night's sleep when they come because they're not used to having roosters at 3 a.m., but we love them.
We want to develop a new acronym, because in marketing, we don't have enough acronyms. So we need one more. We've all heard of cost per click, CPC. We need roosters per conference call, maybe like a
right.
RCC. Yeah, RCC.
Yeah, there you go. Keep a tally. Maybe a bell goes off if we hit our target.
That's right. Little treat pops out. We go have tacos.
Yeah.
And so the other big food there on the island too is pork, like Kahlua pork. Have you ever made this? Like, do you make it yourself? Do you know how to make it?
Yeah. Well, so I don't have what's called an emu. An emu is when they do it in the ground, and they do it with the lava rock and the banana leaf and stuff. And so that's the traditional. A really good friend of mine is the one that does the emu and the food at the Kahuna plantation at the luau there. So if you ever come, let me know and see if we can hook you up. And but the cheater way to do it is get a pork butt, pork shoulder, put it in a slow cooker, okay? Poke it with a fork so that it's got kind of a lot of holes in it.
Okay.
You're going to pour liquid smoke on top, just a little layer so that you can just kind of rub it along the top, and then sprinkle Hawaiian sea salt. Those are the only two ingredients that you need in there. Sprinkle that Hawaiian sea salt and rub it. There's different varieties on Kauai. It's pink. And in fact, here close to our office is a place where they still make Hawaiian sea salt in the traditional way. And anybody that comes out, I'd love to show you at Salt Pond. where that's done and stuff. But put that in the slow cooker. About 8 hours later, you just shred it up with the fork. And everybody that's come and goes home and does that say it's the easiest recipe, and people think they were out digging a hole in their backyard to, cook a pig, when it's just as easy as can be.
We got to change the episode title of this podcast to Secret Kahlua Pork Recipe Revealed Here by Kahuna Marketing.
Right. There's my next channel after trails, and restaurants, and grooming.
You'll get your Instapot sponsorship in no time.
That's right.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time. And if you are headed to Kauai, whether for business, hopefully with us, because we love to have clients to come, or pleasure, hit up Chip. He's got all sorts of great recommendations, especially trails. Him and his wife are just avid hikers, and there is so much on that island. I mean, Kauai is just it's a very special place. So hit us up, let us know. Chip is all the goods, and can give you a fair warning about the roosters. That's good. 3 a.m. wake up calls on vacation. People need to know this stuff.
Right.
Well, awesome. Thanks so much for listening. Tune in. There's going to be more of this. And if you have any questions about marketing, digital advertising to make your business more impactful, let us know. Let's feature it here on the podcast, and stay tuned.
Yeah, we'd love to answer your questions, everybody. Aloha.
See ya next time.